God, I was good looking. Man. What you guys standing up for, man? So, first of all, there's 29 Ironman World Championships represented in this room tonight, which means that there's one Ironman champion at every table that's here. All right, so you figure out who that is. The photos you saw up there, there's one that sticks out the most. In 1979, read the article in Sports Illustrated on this thing called the Ironman. 15 people had done it. And figured out that myself and my roommate at the time, a guy named Ned Overend, went on to become world mountain bike champion, but mountain bikes hadn't been invented yet. So he was working for San Diego Suzuki wrenching. And I was a school teacher, and we read about this thing and decided, hey, we're going to go try to do this thing. So we needed to track down the person who had won the race, Tom Warren. And Tom lived in Pacific Beach. And he had put on the Tug swim, so we decided we better track this guy down. I called Tommy up, and he says, hey, sure, Babbitt, you want to learn about this thing? Why don't you come down here to my office here in Pacific Beach? I'm just south of the Crystal Pier on the west side of the street. So Ned and I go down there, and there's no buildings on the west side of the street, just south of Crystal Pier. But there's a motorhome with a bike on the back, a paddleboard on top, a lot of running shoes tied around the side view mirror, and this guy leans his head out and goes, Babbitt, welcome to my office. And it's Tom Warren. And this is our mentor. There's no books about how to do the Ironman. 15 people had done the thing. This guy had won it. And we're like, Mr. Warren, sir, can you show us how to do this? So Tommy invites us to TD Hayes, a bar that was behind there. And this is how Tommy did business. He'd come down every morning, he'd go for a 5-mile run, and he'd ride down the Mission Beach, and he'd put his hand on the pole right down there at the South Jetty, and there's still a black mark around that pole, because he ran 5 miles every morning, basically, of his life. So Tommy takes us to TD Hayes, which is right behind, and we're asking him, so how do you do this race? How do you do this Ironman? And he as he's talking, and he's drinking, it's like 10 in the morning, he's having a beer, he's got a magic marker with him, and he's making a little mark on his arm. And of course, this is our mentor, so we're trying to figure out this must help to Ironman somehow. And so like, Mr. Warren, sir, so can you explain the magic marker? And he says, well, I've got this little bit of a drinking issue, so I make a mark on my arm. When I get to my sleeve, I go home. So at that point, we realized that this sport is a little weird. Then he took us to his house where he had his bike in the sauna, and he rode 5 hours a day in the sauna because he had to get ready for the heat of the Ironman. So this is our mentor. This is the guy who's going to let us do this thing. And so I go over, and you saw the cool picture. I was wearing number 3. You saw that with the Che Guevara beard, which was pretty sweet. I was number 3 because I sent my money in. My $25 entry fee went in 3rd, so I got number 3. Not like I was ranked or anything. Bought a bike at a police auction for $75. It had been in a fire. The back end was charred. I didn't know how to change a tire, so I had solid rubber tires that I waxed onto the bike. I had a Radio Shack radio so I could listen to tunes as I rode along. Had a fuzzy raccoon seat cover because I was worried about my ass hurting. And I also had Panier's tent in the sleeping bag because I thought you swam 2.4, rode 56, camped out, rode back the next day and did the marathon, which makes a hell of a lot more sense to me than the way you guys do this stupid event. Right? Am I right or what? And back then you had a support crew. You didn't do the events, you didn't have aid stations. So my crew, I was a school teacher. One of the kids I taught, her father lived over there, so I met him the morning of the race, had his little Fiat convertible with his 2 girlfriends. Didn't really know what to eat, so I had about 400 loaves of Hawaiian sweetbread and Gatorade, right? Because we had no clue what we were doing. There was 108 of us in the race. 107 of us had no clue in Dave Scott, right? Dave, you shouldn't even count that win, right? There was nobody there. Absolutely. You beat me. You might as well throw that one back. It's like catching a fish that's too small. Yeah, you wasted your time. So during the ride, my crew, I get out, first of all, getting out of the water was a little bit of a trick. The swim was supposed to be a Waikiki rough water swim. This was before we moved to the Big Island. It's supposed to be a Waikiki rough water swim. Well, the problem was that there was huge storms, and the day before the race, we're in this Grand Otani Hotel, and the waves are breaking against the wall, right? Against the building, 15-foot swells, and Ned and I had done all of our swimming in a 120 length and a mile condo pool in Mission Valley. If a guy jumped into the pool, that was a tsunami, right? Other than that, there was no way we were going to get through this swim. So Ned and I are looking at the waves breaking. We flew all the way over here, and we were like, we're going to die. Well, it turns out ABC had decided to film this thing, but they were only going to film it because they were filming cliff diving on Sunday. So the year before, the Ironman had been postponed a day because of storms. They couldn't do that this time. They had to do it on Saturday if they wanted Wide World of Sports, and that was a huge deal. So the race organizer gets up and goes, listen, this guy named Hank, listen guys, I feel really bad, but I've got to move the swim to Alamoana Channel, so you're not going to be in the surf. And of course, Dave Scott, what a pussy event, I can't believe this, can't believe you're moving it. The Navy SEALs are all upset. And Ned and I are like, thank God we're going to live. So we did 4 lengths of this Alamoana Channel, and it was a guy, the original beast from the East, was a guy named John Huckabee, 59 years old from East Coast. And John Huckabee's claim to fame, he ran the Athens Marathon 3 times in a row in the same day, ran 75 miles, bowed back out. The thing with the Incredible Huck, as he called himself, first guy was sponsorship. He was sponsored by like Acme Vitamins, was autographing cards. Incredible Huck didn't know how to swim. So as we're swimming this channel, I'm swimming down and staying as shallow as humanly possible because I'm scared of the water anyways. I'm swimming down, and I'm on my way back because we're swimming 4 lengths, and I basically almost run into the Incredible Huck, who is walking the entire swim like this in the shallow water. He's the only guy in the history of the Ironman to get blisters on his feet during the swim of the Ironman. So get out of the water, get on the bike, riding along, tuning in my radio, going through Waikiki, thinking this is the coolest thing I have ever done in my life. And 25 miles in, there's my crew on the side of the road, Big Mac fries and a Coke. Sweet. Mile 80 root beer snow cone. Come in at the end of the bike, I hear this music, and I'm like, what's going on? My crew had a bamboo mat laid out. They had a boombox. How about a massage? Sounds good. 45 minutes in T2. Getting a full, oh, that feels good. Now, they had a rule back then, when you did the Ironman back then. The rule was, if you lost 5% of your body weight, they pulled you out of the race. So they had a scale that they weighed you throughout the race. You had to get off your bike, which is why our times were so slow. Dave Scott would have had the all-time record for you to get off his bike 12 times. So, finish the bike, start the run after my massage, and I get to mile 1 and they weigh me, and I'm eating my Hawaiian sweet bread and drinking my Gatorade. I get to mile 4 and I get on the scale, and the guy's next to me, he's on a walkie-talkie. Can you give me that again? He's gained 4 pounds. You can't gain weight doing this. Meanwhile, poor Ned has been out there all day. His girlfriend at the time, Pam, not the most aggressive person in the world, she caught him 85 miles on the bike ride. He was drinking from a sprinkler on the side of the road. So I'm running, and I'm going up Diamond Head and coming down Diamond Head. The Fiat convertible's behind me, and I'm thinking, I thought this was going to take me 2 days. I had no idea I could do this in 1 day. So I'm thinking there's going to be a band. There's going to be all sorts of people cheering for us at the finish. This is a pretty impactful event. Cheerleader something. Come along, and I get into Capilani Park, and there's like chalk on the road, and there's a light bulb up above. And I hear this voice in the darkness. Hey, you. Yeah? You in the race? Yeah. You're done. Where's the love? Where's Mike Riley? You are an Ironman. I was nothing. There was one idiot doing one-arm push-ups in the park, and that was it. I get back to the room, Ned's The moon, they always did Ironman on a full moon. The moon's coming through the window in the hotel, and Ned's back looks like a lobster. And he just turns over to me and goes, I didn't see her all day long. So what Ironman did for me, it gave me this business card. When I finished that race, I felt like my life was changed. The sport of triathlon had changed my life. I knew I could do anything. And when I came back, I was teaching school. I was a PE teacher. Lois Schwartz was the art teacher at the same school. Where's Lois at? Lois, please stand up. Lois, my partner, the person who believed in me before I believed in myself, has been with me the entire journey. So we come back. Mike Plant is running this magazine called The Running News. I go to him, I say, dude, this sport of triathlon is amazing. So he comes over and sees the Ironman the next year and immediately changes the name of the magazine to Running and Triathlon News. And I leave teaching, and Lois leaves teaching, and we become the LA editor and LA photographer for Running and Triathlon News, and I'm in this world, and I'm loving every second. And Mike Plant, who's not with us tonight, he gave me the freedom. He said, go create whatever you want. So he had no idea it was going to be the old fart of the month, it was me the running wino, it was going to be all sorts of totally politically incorrect stuff that he would get letters and calls on every single month, but he just let me do what I wanted to do. And I think we brought some personality to the sport. And then in 1987, Running and Triathlon News closed down and had no idea what I was going to do. And we went and met with a couple of magazines, California Bicyclist and Southwest Cycling. And they were also free magazines. We went to them and said, hey, if we did a magazine that combined running, triathlon, and cycling, it could be really impactful. And both the guys from these magazines told me exactly the same thing. We'll never put a skinny runner on the cover of our magazine, and triathlon's a fad that'll be gone in 5 years. And we came back and had no idea what we were going to do, and where's Ron Marola at? Ron Marola, please stand up. Ron Marola owned a store called The Sports Page. He got some friends together and gave Lois and I a check for $17,000 and said, go start your own magazine. And a month later, Competitor Magazine was born. Ron, I owe you everything. Our first office was 200 square feet, under 20,000 pounds of bike racks, and a race director's warehouse. We didn't pay ourselves for the first 6 months, but we loved every second of that journey, just being able to have a new product every single month. A year later, we brought a new guy on board who became our sales rep and became part of our family, John Smith. Where's John at? John, please stand up. John Smith became part of the Competitor family, and we started to we started to gel. Things started to go well. And the main thing that happened is we were so blessed by having great stories to tell and great athletes to cover who became our partners in growing this little sport of triathlon. Dave Scott, Mark Allen, Scott Tinley, Scott Molina, Paul Nibby Frazier, Greg Welch, Heather Fuhrer, Sally Edwards, Chris McCormick, McKeely Jones. How about a round of applause for all those athletes? Those are the athletes who put this sport on the map. And those are the athletes who brought us from a sport that started in the 70s and 25 years later was in the Olympics in Sydney for the first time. And you don't know how proud all of us were to watch that. And watch McKeely get that silver medal will be something I'll never forget. Also had an idea that, hey, if we could take our athletes and put them on a sports station, just like Joe Montana and Wayne Gretzky, and people heard interviews with our athletes, the mainstream media would look at our athletes as something special. And Paul Huddle, please stand up, Paul. Huddle agreed. Come on. He agreed to that lame idea to come in and do that. We've been doing it for 20 years, 22 years now. And then had another idea of creating an endurance sports awards, competitor awards, where we would honor the greatest athletes in our sport. We'd bring media in from around the world to show how important our sport is. And he didn't blink. He said, I'm on 1,000%. For 18 years, we hosted that together, the Competitor Endurance Sports Awards. Mr. Mike Riley. Mike, dear friend, who just last year called his 100th Ironman in New Zealand. 100 hours on the microphone, 100 races on the microphone. Unbelievable. I think we all realized early on that if you were short or fat, it didn't matter what you were, triathlon was a sport that anybody could do. And when you watch Dick Hoyt pull his son, you realize the impact the sport could have. And all of us in this room know Jim McLaren. Jim McLaren was a 300-pound football player at Yale. He was hit by a New York City bus in 1985 and lost his leg. He was dead on arrival at the hospital and losing his leg. He came back from that to change perceptions of what somebody with a prosthetic could do when he went 10:42 in Kona. He ran a 3:16 marathon and seriously changed perceptions when he finished in the top 20% of everybody in the race as an amputee athlete. 8 years later, he was injured again. A guy who's already an amputee was racing up in Orange County. A van went through a closed intersection, hit the back of his bike, propelled him in a pole, and became a quadriplegic. And this little sport of triathlon, Jeffrey Esikow, Rick Kozlowski, please stand up, you guys. They formed the backbone of an event we created called the San Diego Triathlon Challenge to raise enough money to buy Jimmy a van that he could drive with his hands, give him some semblance of independence. That first year, we raised $49,000. And since then, Jeffrey just updated me, we have raised over $40 million to keep people in the game of sport, in the game of life through sport. And the athletes who've been helped, Sarah Reinerson is here, Willie Stewart is here. If you've raced against one-arm Willie Stewart, Paul Huddle, you know that he will kick your butt and spit you out. If you try to swim against Rudy Garcia-Tolson, double above knee amputee, who is, we all would kill for this. He's sponsored by British Petroleum and McDonald's, okay? Things have changed just a little bit. A few weeks ago, Challenged Athletes Foundation, through that amazing leadership of Virginia Tinley and her entire crew, sent out grants worth $1.7 million to 1,106 athletes all over the world. 1,106 athletes. That's the power of this little sport called triathlon. So, the sport's changed. We were adventurers when we first started. We had no idea we could get to the finish line. And 1997, standing at the finish line with a guy named Michael Collins. Michael Collins was the son of John and Judy Collins, the creators of the Ironman. And Michael was 16 years old in 1979 when he did his only Ironman. No cutoff times back then. He was out there for over 24 hours. Stomach problems, bike problems, mom losing him on the course problems, you name it. So I'm standing with Michael, and as people are finishing in 1997, people know how to do the race now, and their goal is 11:20, and they finished in 11:40. And every one of them's going, I had a bad day. I had such a bad day. Michael turns to me, and Michael's not the funniest guy in the world, but just deadpan, he goes, these people have no idea what a bad day is. A bad day is when you've been on the Ironman course for 24 hours, you're walking the marathon, and the paper boy is going by delivering papers with results of a race that you're still in. That is a bad day. In my life, in the sport of triathlon, I've never had a bad day. I love this sport dearly. I want to thank all of you for believing in this sport the same way I do, and for everything you do to make triathlon the greatest sport on the planet. Thank you to USAT. Thank you so much for everything all of you guys have brought to my life. Appreciate it.